Exactly. And I want to extend this prediction and go to the Europa League now, because this might be the simplest prediction we make all year. I just don't think anybody can go against Leverkusen right now, not until they lose a game. So when we look at Leverkusen Atalanta, I think it's a great matchup. First of all, Atalanta have done so well this season, especially in these playoff type of settings, and overall, I think they deserve to get here. They were great against Marseille. They made it to a Coppa Italia final. We can talk about that in a little bit, but can you go against Leverkusen? Can you actually say, all right, Atalanta, an above average team in Serie A who punch above their weight, can they beat an undefeated Bayer Leverkusen? The answer is no, 100 times out of 100. I just can't hear an argument that says otherwise, man.
Yeah, bro, as a football content creator, when it comes to making predictions, I just look at my list of things that I look to check off when making my predictions. Does this team have that? Does this team have this over the other? And with Bayer Leverkusen, it's the first team in our entire podcast careers where they check off every single thing, because they have not lost, bro. I don't know what else to say. I have no reason to go for Atalanta here. I'm sorry. I really am. They've been impressive within their own context and what they've achieved this season, taking down a giant in Liverpool in those quarterfinals and being the rightful team to progress through, and then defeating Marseille as well, getting a really impressive result away from home and then withholding that at home as well. Atalanta has been incredible, and normally I would have picked them to ultimately lift up this title with how they played so far, but I just think Bayer Leverkusen has been just by a wide margin, a better team this entire season because of what they've achieved. So Atalanta, I think the only thing we can really focus on is their story, what they're trying to do, what it would mean to them if they ultimately do win the title. But as for game analysis, man, I really do think this just leans towards Bayer Leverkusen fully.
Exactly. And for Atalanta, you can get really sentimental and emotional, because what Gasperini has done for Atalanta over these last 8 years has been immense. He has made them into genuine European fighters, man. I mean, what was it, like 4 or 5 years ago? They were in the Champions League knockout stages, going for semifinal appearances.
Against PSG, I think.
They were that good, and they've been able to maintain a very high level of football despite losing a lot of that team that made those Champions League runs. But Gasperini has been the mastermind behind it. He has still managed this team to another really big match here, and in this case, a final. Here's the thing with Atalanta, though. Over these last 8 years, not a single piece of silverware to show for it.
You're right. No trophies to his name so far during his Atalanta tenure, but to me, the number that stands out so much is 8 years, man. When you said 8 years, actually took me aback a little bit, because today we were reminded of Jurgen Klopp's legacy at Liverpool, and that was a 9-year legacy that he built and that he was able to achieve so many things with. But Gasperini has been doing it for 8 years at Atalanta, a club that I would say has less resources than like a Liverpool side, for example. And so I think it's very impressive what he's been able to do at the helm for this team. The commitment, the loyalty that he has to the club, and the loyalty that the club has to him is actually a really remarkable relationship that we have right now in world football. And I also am just left really impressed with how he's managed his talent, because he's seen guys like Rasmus Højlund, for example, who was there last year, get rotated out, just completely sold him, but yet found a way to strive and succeed despite his absence. Zapata, I remember, was a big part of Atalanta and their success, losing him as well. So often they shift talent in and out, but it's Gasperini at the middle of it who's been able to just find ways to keep them in that top 6 range of Serie A, but also just competing at a really high level. This is, he's chasing his ultimate dream here, which is to get finally that big major trophy added to his name to represent all the work that he's done. So like I said, the story is beautiful, man. It really is. And if they do end up winning it, I'll be very happy for them. I just think they're up against a really tough opponent.
Exactly. And, just to keep praising Atalanta, their scouting is so good too. El Bilalture hopefully will have a really good season next year. He was injured for such a large portion of this season, but he seems to be a really good player coming from Almeria. Again, it's just such good scouting for Atalanta. As you said, they had players like Duvan Zapata, Luis Muriel way back then, but they were able to find other options once those players were eventually shifted out of the club. So yes, Gasperini and his scouting team have done such a good job at keeping Atalanta so competitive. But I saw the final that they played against Juventus in the Coppa Italia, and they got ran, bro. Yeah. They got ran against a really driven team in Juventus. Juventus were great, do not get me wrong, but I mean, Charles de Ketelaere, for example, led the line for Atalanta, and he's never really proven to be clinical for me, right? Ademola Lookman's a really good winger, but I think he needs someone to service. I don't think that Cataleya is really going to be that guy. Martin de Roon is a fantastic defensive midfielder. He has been for Atalanta this entire time, but I just think overall, as a cohesive unit, Atalanta are good, but they're not better than the best teams in Europe. They just simply are not. And that's what they're facing in Bayer Leverkusen. A complete team. Regardless of the narrative that they have going for them, Leverkusen are just better in every facet, in my opinion. So I think they'll be able to compete. Do not get me wrong, but Leverkusen's going to win the Europa League final.
History is waiting to be made in Dublin. I cannot wait to see what happens there.